Coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. I really hate starting podcasts on any kind of somber news because I see sports as a consistently positive force, not just within local media, which we're going to get into, but just the world in general. And we have so much amazing stuff to get into in this show, which I hope you guys stick around for, with the FIFA World Cup, which Caleb has been super into, and he has a lot of really cool stuff to talk about there, and Elias Pettersson potentially on the move in the future. But we've got to start with the news that came out just an hour ago, really this morning. By all accounts, from Jonas Siegel, who is of YYZ Sports Media, by all accounts, Rogers has shut down Vancouver's sports radio Sportsnet 650 station effective immediately. Shades of TSN 1040 from just over 5 years ago now. Holy, that really feels like yesterday. Caleb, I guess I'll start with you before I get into my grand takeaways. I obviously had a tweet that has been seen by a lot of people that I want to expand on. But when I texted you about this morning while we were prepping for the show, what were the first kind of thoughts that came into your head?
Well, first, I thought this is just kind of the way things are heading. I think a lot of podcasts and content type things, especially when it comes to sports, are going to just be more independent things like what you and I are doing right now, rather than something that's owned by a company like TSN 1040 was, like Sportsnet 650 was. And unless you're in Toronto, there's no guarantee that your station will last. And even if you are in Toronto, there's no guarantee that that will last either, because it's all about social media. And if you don't have the strongest presence on social media, if you don't post clips of what people are talking about, like they didn't do, then you're not going to have success, and the company's going to want to shut it off. But it's very sad to see, because so many people lost jobs, and it just happened like a snap like that. No, like you said, no goodbye episode, no final warning, just smack middle of summer, random news, and it's terrible. I remember during my time with the Giants, I got to do many interviews, and they would always be live on air on Sportsnet 650. That's where all their content and pregame shows were. So that's all not going to happen now, probably. So yeah, it's a very sad thing to see. But the thing I think about most is how people were impacted by this and how they lost jobs.
Yeah, I hear you, man. My mind went into a million different ways when I saw this at first. Obviously, my first reaction is what I tweeted and what I'll start with. The fact that these major companies feel no responsibility whatsoever to just have the basic human decency of some long-term notice that this is going to happen,
Hmm.
B, telling these personalities and behind the scenes employees and producers and et cetera, all the people that work there, that their jobs are going to be lost. Instead, they find out over Twitter, just like we do. Like, just an overall lack of class and appreciation for the amount of work and hours that these people have put into connecting with an audience, because God knows it's not easy. Like, I've been doing this show for three and a half years now, Caleb. Like, we're coming up on damn near 4 years of the Spit Sports Show. We have over 450 subscribers, and I'm incredibly proud of that. But it's just a testament to how much work goes into building up an audience of really any kind. And
Hmm.
these people have put in 7, 8 hours a day, plus time away from the studio where they're thinking about what they want to say, time on Twitter researching. Like, this is not a 9 to 5 kind of job. If you want
No.
to be successful, it is your entire life is committed to this.
Yeah.
And their plug is pulled, and they find out just like you and I did this morning. I find it all flatly gross. And it's all goes back to corporate politics. It's a corporate decision after Rogers took over the remaining stake in MLSE. They're now 100% owners, and then they wipe out Vancouver's largest sports station, like realistically, the next day. It's all just everything that I don't want sports to become. It's business bureau BS. And my overall takeaway, again, I hate that we're starting on such a somber tone, but we have to. We are an independent Vancouver media show. Like, we don't have a choice. We've got to talk about this, and it deserves to be talked about and put on notice. It feels like the dream of becoming a sports media personality is becoming less and less of a real career path per se and more akin to like an acting or a musical career. It's almost a fantastical idea because especially now with 650 out in the city,
Mhm.
what entry level positions are there? What internships are there for you to be able to work your way up in this sports media landscape? I've been incredibly blessed. I thank my lucky stars every single day that I was able to do an internship with an independent network
Yeah.
and been able to transition that obviously into a position there. And like genuinely, I am so grateful to everybody I've met there because it is a real far cry from what it used to be just 20 years ago, where you would start on a CTV or a Global or whatever, because all of those big news stations had sports subsections and you
Yeah.
could write for them.
Mhm.
So you'd start at an entry level position covering shitty news, traffic, blah, blah, blah. And then after a couple of years, you might do a sports blog every now and then. And then you could be a sports like it was a legit linear career path that when you told your parents, I want to become a sports media personality, they were like, okay, where do you start? Like, do this, this, and this. Whereas now, when you tell your parents that same thing, or your grandma, like, what are you doing with your life? You're like, well, I'm working my ass off posting on YouTube, like you said, creating shorts, tweeting. It's just a completely different landscape, and there
Yeah.
is no actual path to success. It's just try your best, be the best person you can be, which is what we're trying to do here. And it's definitely an introspective news story coming out today because, like I said, to kind of start, we try our best to be the best we possibly can be without the resources that these big stations had. And it's turning into a blessing instead of a hindrance because that's the way that sports media in general is going. It's so minimized nowadays. Like one of the biggest shows in Vancouver, which I work on, I'm sure if you've listened to previous episodes, you know what show I'm talking about, but it is what it is. There's 3 guys in that studio, and it's not a big studio, and they pull in thousands of viewers every single day. It's just becoming such a niche almost when it used to be such a generality. Everyone tuned in every morning to listen to what 650 or 1040 had to say. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but obviously a lot of thoughts came into my head when I saw this. It's an extremely sad day. And just to put an end to the spiel, like Caleb said, I feel and my heart goes out to all of those people who worked at 650 and put in those disgusting 4 a.m. shifts, waking up at 2 a.m. to go do the
Yep.
local morning sports and stayed late. And like I said, this isn't a 9 to 5. You go home and you think about sports. You think about what the topic is going to be the next day.
Yep.
You're on Twitter all day, understanding what the noise is. Like the clock that you don't clock out of this job. It's your life. And these people just have the plug pulled out from under them from a fucking tweet from some guy in Toronto. And I'm sorry to use an F bomb this early, but man, it really, really frustrates me.
No, yeah, and like you said, not only just the long days, but these are people who have worked in the industry for the last 25, 30 years. Like these are
Yes.
people who are big names. These are like I remember seeing Sportsnet 650 clip of Randeep Janda covering the draft. And it was like a
Mhm.
post about how he loved sports media and how he loved his job and he loved that he was covering the draft. And like now, like just a week later, now all those people don't have jobs. Like, it's so
Right.
crazy to think about. But I mean, that's kind of always like when you're owned by Rogers, and I think that were the Canucks involved in owning Sportsnet 650 in any way? because I
Well,
feel like
that brings up a whole other can of worms, my friend. Like, what the hell is gonna happen to those radio broadcasts, the play-by-play stuff? Like, Brendan Batchelor, dude,
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
you gonna have like, there's so many questions still.
Yeah, and, like, yeah, because obviously this is the NHL, you have to have a radio broadcast for the Canucks, so
Yes, sir.
I don't know if what they're gonna do there, maybe that aspect of it is just isn't Sportsnet 650, but it's kept, but, like, that also brings up that there's so many questions about this, and some people know that they don't have a job now, some people don't know if, they don't have a job now, so it's really terrible. But like you said, going back to other places like Sakaris and Price, they had to deal with a situation similar to this, but they landed on their feet very quickly, kind of pivoted to what the landscape is now, which is very social media based, and they're succeeding because of it. So, I have full confidence that a lot of these guys will do the same because they're intelligent enough about the business.
Talented people and hardworking people always find a place somewhere if they're passionate enough about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that these 650 people, like we've been trying to articulate, they live and breathe sports and
Hmm.
live and breathe Vancouver sports, and they'd rather be doing nothing else, just like you and I. Like, fuck, I keep swearing, but man, this is a really frustrating topic for me. Like, you and I are spending our Saturdays, we're 20, 21 years old. Like, typically we'd be out, I don't know, playing golf or partying or whatever kids our age do. Like,
Hmm.
we sit in our rooms talking about sports, spending hours on Discord servers and figuring out camera work and 1080p video and trying to
Yep.
connect our Wi-Fi. Like, it's no fun, but it's what we love doing. And we know that the work that goes into it should have an end goal that, again, we've wanted to work towards forever. These people have done all of that, and it doesn't matter because this giant company bought this other giant company and buy. Like, it
Yeah.
just flatly sucks. Any final thoughts on this, or do you wanna go to the fun stuff?
Let's go into the fun stuff. I think I said all
Alright.
that I can say.
Yeah, amen, man. Okay, so back to the reality of not the reality, but the fanatical world of sports, which we love so much. I mean, it is always fascinating to me how much conversation can just stem from a post on X or a comment on a podcast in 2026. A couple of weeks ago, it was crickets, according to Darren Dreger, surrounding a potential Elias Pettersson trade. But just yesterday, Elliot Friedman, who is the single best in the business, and Jay Fresh Hockey, who is probably my favorite stats page on Twitter, and Pittsburgh Penguins beat reporter Josh Yo or Yoki, I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly, but they've all speculated about a potential trade involving the Canucks' former All-Star Elias Pettersson potentially going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. In terms of a pure hockey fit, I think this makes all of the sense in the world for Pettersson. I mean, especially with the culture that Sidney Crosby sets over there. Like, Teddy Bluger played for both the Penguins and the Canucks. So I don't know if there's anybody better to speak on the delta between those two cultures than he is. But he was asked in his introductory press conference with the Leafs about what he learned in Vancouver. And he commented specifically on a new understanding of the importance of cohesion in the locker room. And he specifically referenced his experience with Crosby. It's like Sid setting the tone, practice habits, discipline, showing up on time. It seems like Pettersson could use a mentor like that. He also has no pressure to be the face of the franchise,
No.
leader of the team. That's Crosby's job. He also will have probably more scoring wingers to work with than he ever had in Vancouver. Maybe not ever, but definitely now, especially with Andrei Kuzmenko signing
Yep.
there in free agency,
Yep.
which could have been the groundwork for a potential Pettersson trade. I mean, those two were straight up magic together back in, I think that was 22, 23. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge Igor Chinnikov fan. He broke out huge towards the end of the year. Rickard Rakell's a pretty good player. Penguins have plenty of cap space to get this done, and prospects to give potentially. Caleb, when I presented you with this idea and we started talking about it, what did you think about a potential Elias Pettersson move to the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, I thought about the Kuzmenko thing first because they had
Yeah.
great chemistry together in Vancouver. Obviously, Pittsburgh can take on his contract. It's all going to be up to, I think, whether Pettersson likes this move, if he wants to go to Pittsburgh. I think this makes sense
Mhm.
for all parties, though. I think it makes sense for him. It makes sense for Pittsburgh and Vancouver. He's the type of player that needs to just be in a new environment. Maybe Vancouver wants to give him one more year, and I can get why that's tempting to do that. But
Yeah.
I think for him, this would be great. And, I have a feeling like he might not want to go to Pittsburgh just because I know a lot of those Swedish players love Vancouver very much. But
Yeah.
I think for him, just pure hockey, I think, yeah, this would make sense for him.
Yeah, just to be perfectly clear, full no movement clause. They
Yeah,
can't trade him anywhere without his explicit
no,
permission. But like you said about potentially him having a bounce back year and the Canucks wanting to hold on to him, so trade him at a higher apex than what he's currently at. Trading with Kyle Dubas goes against my personal tried and true philosophy, and I think it's a tried and true philosophy throughout history is trade with the dumbest organizations possible as much as you can. And I don't think Kyle Dubas fits into that bucket. If anything, he's in the opposite bucket with the Eric Tulskis and the Chris McFarlands of guys who, when they call you, you almost want to hang up the phone right away because you figure you're going to get screwed. It's like talking with Les Snead with the Rams. You know what I mean?
right, right.
So it kind of goes against that, in my opinion. I'd rather this trade was with, I don't know, New York, like the Marcus Pettersson trade was, which was awesome. I did a whole episode on that. Or the Chicago, how what they
Yeah,
just did with the Byram, or
yeah,
just any of these, like a Nashville, even I know McFarland's over there now, but just like these lesser tier organizations, because I just feel like it's easier to take advantage of them and get a better package. And the fact that Dubas specifically is so high on Pettersson, like I don't know if you saw this, Caleb, but at one of his last press conferences of the year, he had a quote which, in the right context of what we're talking about now, it could be looked at as a direct plea for Pettersson's services. I don't know if you've heard this, but this is a quote. I think if you're one of those players that's a free agent or your situation is in a spot where it's not going well and you have some control, you can look at us and see very clearly that you're going to be supported by a great coaching staff that gets the most out of players, but you'll also have young players that are going to push from behind and older players that are going to set the tone. Does that not sound like a direct advertisement for Pettersson to be the second line center in
it
Pittsburgh next
does.
year?
It
Like,
does.
Dubas has made it perfectly clear he wants to make Crosby's last years as successful as possible. He wants to give
Yeah.
him every chance to win in Pittsburgh. I think the Canucks have a plethora of factors to weigh in when evaluating this situation because, like you said, you don't want to trade Pettersson for seemingly pennies on the dollar if he's able to come back next season and be awesome as the 2C instead of the 1C. You're trading with a really smart GM. There's more kindle in this fire than you would expect. But I will say, if you're the Canucks, you absolutely have to, at the minimum, get a first round pick or two, and ideally Will Horcroft, because he is the Pens' best prospect. It seems as though they're willing to parse with him, and there's no way you get rid of Pettersson for anything less than, in fact, I think 2 first round picks, considering where the market is right now.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think just back to your point about not wanting to trade potentially with Dubas in Pittsburgh because they do things well. I'm of the believer that Pettersson will succeed wherever he goes. But I
Mm,
think the Canucks need to live with that. I full on think that he is the type of guy that just needs a different destination to go to. He just needs a change of scenery. I have a feeling like he'd have a good season this year, put up maybe 70 points. Obviously, he was the type of player that put up 90, even 100-point seasons. I don't know if he'll
mm.
ever reach that again. So it's very tempting to say, "Oh, can we get one more year out of Pettersson?" But I do think, like, if he went to a Pittsburgh or really anywhere else, he would succeed, and I think we just gotta realize, like, that wasn't gonna happen here most likely, and, Canucks fans gotta live with, him having, maybe an 80-point season somewhere else. So I think that overall, I would say you need to trade him. And as long as you're getting a good deal, just trade him to wherever. And Pittsburgh's a good spot too, because it's out of your conference. So yeah, I would trade him if I were the Canucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I think the Canucks have clearly voiced concerns with having Pettersson as an integral part of this rebuild. They've talked extensively about his lack of preparation in the off seasons. He's known to be a bit aloof with his teammates, and
Yeah.
whether you think he's a superstar anymore or not, he's going to be one of the best players on the Canucks. And when you're one of the best players, whether you like it or not, the energy you present, your aura, if you will, it resonates throughout the locker room. So having that as part of a new culture that they want to establish might not be at the top of the Sedins' want list, to be honest with you. So maybe they want to get him out for those purposes as well. I definitely think there could be a couple of moves on the board here. I do want to get into, though, all of the FIFA World Cup action, because this has been an unbelievable tournament. I
Yeah.
tried to think of a bunch of different synonyms and descriptions, adjectives for how I can put this into words. But as somebody, just to start this off, as who considers themselves a very casual soccer fan, to say the least, this tournament has made me legitimately want to follow EPL football and La Liga. And it helped me and is continuing to help me understand why this is looked at as the preeminent game in the world. It is
Hmm.
so much fun. Every goal is so tense. Every chance feels like it could turn the game on its head. It feels like, because again, the goals are so valuable, every team has a chance to win, because you never know, you could fluke into one early and just shut them down for the rest of the game. Like Cape Verde took Argentina to the 15th round. I was baffled and stunned. It was one of the most unbelievable sporting events I've ever seen in my life, to be
Yeah.
totally honest with you. But we'll start with our fellow North American neighbors from yesterday, if you don't mind, Caleb. By the way, before we do, Egypt is up 1-0 on Argentina as we film this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to. Once we're wrapping this, I think we're gonna have to hop on a call and watch that game together. But
And
regardless,
I think Messi's
go
missed
ahead.
at least one, if not two penalty kicks. I think that's the notification
Goodness
I got.
gracious! Ah, not good. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you guys will know the result of that game. We'll talk about the result that we know in this current time at 9:36 a.m. US gets absolutely smoked by Belgium yesterday. Like I said, I'm a very casual soccer fan, but I'm a very hardcore sports fan, and I know an ass whipping when I see one. Besides that deflected free kick, which went in for the US, Belgium just completely outclassed them for 90 minutes. It did not feel like those two teams were playing the same sport, especially with all of the controversy surrounding the US
Yeah.
team going into the game, which we do not need to get into. For me personally, it was incredibly satisfying. I'm not sure if you felt the same way, Caleb, but I know that you're very, very into this World Cup soccer and have a much greater depth of knowledge when it comes to this World Cup than I do. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So I just want to go into Belgium for a second. I feel like when they were down 2-0 against Senegal, this is a team that was so like just they had nothing. They're a
Lethargic.
country, exactly. They're a country that has always been labeled as overrated because for like 10 years they were ranked as the number one country in the world, even though they had never won an international tournament. And this just kind of felt like the end of that. And then they somehow score two goals against Senegal. And then they get that penalty at the end of extra time, which I didn't think was a penalty, but you know what? They gave it to them. And so it still felt like, oh, they won, but this is on them. They shouldn't be there because, that penalty shouldn't have been given to them. And then this Balogun situation happens, and I think it just motivated them. They're
Mm.
like who does the US think they are? Like this is still Belgium. This is, a country that is one of the greatest countries ever when it comes to the sport of football. And I, they just came out swinging like it wasn't even a close game. It wasn't even a close game. 4-1 feels closer than it was. It was all
Yeah.
Belgium. And I think that just kind of flipped the switch for them, and I think they're really in the right momentum moving forward.
It's hard to disagree, especially considering, again, the noise that the US was making going into that game. It felt like a must, uh, not a must win, but a must not get embarrassed.
Yeah,
Again, the reaction to, again, one of their best players, their leading goal scorer, being suspended and then retroactively being reinstated into the game. It felt like the US almost felt like that was the win of the game. It
yeah,
felt like him playing was like a big middle finger to the rest of the world, like, "We're the superpower. Our president made a phone call, and we just completely reinvented FIFA's red card rules. Go USA, blah, blah, blah." And then the actual game starts, and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't matter if we have this guy. Our midfield cannot compete with Belgium's midfield." That was, to me, the biggest emphasis point in the game. Like, whenever that ball was in even the slightest bit of, what's the word, contest, or just, no control for either team in terms of their
right.
possession, it felt like Belgium just won every single one of those loose balls. And to me, it was a huge FU right back to the US from the
Yeah,
rest of the world. I'm not sure if you saw what the Belgian national team tweeted after the game. They said,
yeah,
"Reverse that." After, again, like you said, it was not as close as 4-1 shows. And for anyone who isn't a hardcore soccer fan, 4-1 is a pretty bad loss in this sport. I'm telling you, if you actually watch that game from start to finish, it felt more like 7-0 to me.
yeah.
So incredibly satisfying. Kayla, I'm gonna kind of give you the floor here because obviously there's a million ways that we could go with this incredible tournament. Is there a game that you watched over the weekend, or I think there was just one game yesterday, but in the past couple of days that you'd love to recap, and maybe just a look forward at some of the games we have coming up, like Holland, his
Oh,
unbelievable
yeah.
performance against Brazil, for example, where he turned into Superman. Norway versus England is coming up in the
Oh,
quarters. Like,
yeah.
we have some unbelievable matchups coming up, my man. I'm so excited. What a summer.
No, these games have been great. Mexico, England, like that was such a good game. Norway,
That was
Brazil.
sick.
I'm so happy for Norway. The fact that they can finally be showcased the way they are. Obviously, they have Holland, who could arguably be the best player in the world right now. Probably
Yeah.
not because of Mbappe, but like they have always. I felt like throughout the entire World Cup qualifying process, they were a dominant team, and they're finally showcasing that. The one game I wanted to highlight, though, is Spain against Portugal yesterday, because now
Mhm.
Spain and Belgium will play each other. And I think these are two teams where, if you asked me before the tournament, Spain against Belgium, I would say Spain easily. I feel
Yes.
like Belgium is heading in the right direction, though, and Spain isn't fully there. Like,
Mhm.
people will watch that Spain Portugal game and be like, Spain didn't play well. Well, I wouldn't say that's true. Spain played the very boring style of defend, defend, defend until the 80th minute, wear Portugal down, and then they eventually get the goal in the 90 plus one, I believe. That's
Yes.
not usually their style. Usually they're getting a ton of goals, but they haven't conceded a single goal in this tournament. Now, comparing that with Belgium, who's heading in the right direction, in my opinion, it's going to be a weird game. I could see either team winning, but I think Spain's going to go far in this tournament because I think they've got a style of play where they can play defensively. They can also play very offensively. Lamine
Mhm.
Yamal, you can clearly tell he's a little bit hurt, and that's going to affect them
Yes.
moving forward. But I think Spain's done a really good job of just kind of grinding out these wins. And as we've seen in this World Cup, like I still think France is the best team, maybe
I was just about to say.
Argentina, but like France dominated Paraguay and only beat them 1-0 because of a penalty call. Like
Mhm.
anything can happen in these games. And so I think with Spain, I think they've got the best style of play to win just that one game. It's like the NFL playoffs. You just need to win one game, and yeah, I think Spain's going to do the best with that, especially considering too that this is a team that has a ton of experience from winning the last Europe tournament, the Euros. So yeah, I think their experience and just everything Spain's the team that I got moving forward, but Spain-Belgium's going to be a great game.
Oh my gosh, I actually cannot wait. These World Cup games have me so fired up for every single one of these matchups, especially from this point on. Like you don't
Mhm.
have any of the again, no disrespect to the South Africas of the world, and I'm not going to name any other countries, but you know what I mean. We
Yeah.
are in the classiest of the classiest football nations in the world right now. I do think, and again, I take everything I say with a grain of salt when it comes to soccer. I don't know the ins and outs of these lineups, but I do pay very, very close attention to these games because I'm fascinated by them and I just love sports and have been analyzing sports since I was like 4 years old. So I think I do have something to give here. To me, France has looked like far and away the best team in this tournament.
Yeah.
I cannot believe the chemistry that their attacking three have together. Their performance, what was it, against Sweden
Sweden, yeah.
in the round of
Yeah.
32? Oh my gosh, Caleb, the ball movement that they're able to create when they're around the box, it looks like it's 3-on-3, when in actuality, Sweden has like 6 defenders against obviously France's 3, and it just looks effortless. The give
Yeah.
and goes, the one touches, the ability to shoot from the outside. Like these guys have the most offensive talent that I have seen in this tournament that I think it's flatly game breaking. And like you said, Mbappe to me looks like the best player in the world. I think Holland has, especially considering the country he plays for, like Mbappe plays for France. That
Yeah.
is on the board of the greatest footballing nation ever. I think it's Brazil, but they're definitely on that short list. Norway is nowhere close to
Yeah.
that short list. And the fact that he's gotten them to the final 8 is just unbelievable. I think that's a hotly contested debate, and we'll see if Messi has something to say about that while he's playing right now. But obviously, he's a million years old. I
Yeah.
think France to me is the best team in this tournament, and I would love nothing more than to see them. Is it possible for them to play Argentina in the finals again? Is that
France,
I
Argentina,
don't have
that
to
would be
back it.
possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Nah, I would love to see a repeat because that 2022 World Cup final is maybe the greatest game I've ever seen live. Like, there's a couple in the
Yeah.
conversation. Like, we had that
Like you're
Knicks
talking
comeback
total
earlier this year,
sports?
like yeah, like, I think that
Really?
might be number 1. Like, dude, 4-3 in penalties with Argentina up 2-0 going into the second half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mbappe scores a hat trick. Messi, we think wins the game with the game winner, that rebound. Mbappe ties it again with another penalty. Like, man, that game had everything.
And
I would
and
love to see a rematch of it.
And France almost won with, like, the last second of the game in extra time,
Yes,
but that
dude, I
great
forgot
save,
about that.
like, oh,
Yeah.
could you imagine losing a World Cup off that? Like, that
Oh
would
my
be
god.
but, yeah, like you said, to me, the biggest thing with France, because they have literally 0 weaknesses.
Right.
When you're a team that has 0 weaknesses, it's like you almost gotta find an issue with this team, and what people mentioned with France before the tournament was egos. I mean, Kylian Mbappe, arguably the best player in the world. They have Ousmane Dembele, who won the Ballon d'Or last year because he was the best player in the world. There's just a ton of guys on this team who wanna be the ones scoring goals, and I felt like there's been none of that in this tournament. They've gelled
Mhm.
great together. Like you mentioned, France, ever since they won the World Cup in 2018, that was a completely different squad compared to the team that went to the final in 2022, compared to this team now. They've done everything right. And I want to mention that ego thing again because I think that was the issue with Portugal. Portugal
Yes, great call.
was like to me Portugal was top 3 going into this tournament. Like, I really thought this was gonna finally be their time to win the World Cup, and Bruno Fernandes disappoint like, I'm not gonna blame Ronaldo for this, t and I wanna mention something about Ronaldo a little bit later on, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna blame Ronaldo for Portugal losing. Like, he's past his prime, he's 41 years old. The players in their prime on Portugal, like Bruno Fernandes, just weren't good enough. And a lot of that was because of ego. They didn't get the greatest coaching from Martinez. But, I think that's a issue that could happen with France moving forward. But I think they're really, really doing good together. And yeah. And then just to go into the Ronaldo thing, just because I want to mention his legacy internationally. people, and by the way, I prefer Messi over Ronaldo. I think Messi's the greatest player of all time. I don't
It's
think it's
funny you have to
Ronaldo.
make that distinction before you make a comment on Messi or Ronaldo these days.
It
It's like
is.
LeBron or like, I have to say before I start this,
No,
this is
yeah.
who I am.
Yeah.
Just the quick disclaimer is needed. Go ahead.
Well, the reason I mention it though is because I'm gonna say something positive about Ronaldo here, and I don't want to sound like a homer, but I'm very much gonna say something positive about Ronaldo here. When people look at Ronaldo's career internationally with Portugal, people will always mention that he didn't win the World Cup. What people need to realize though is that he's from Portugal. He is not from Brazil, Italy, Germany, Argentina, France, England, Spain. He's from Portugal. And the reason why I mention that is because outside of a third place finish in the 1966 World Cup, Portugal has done nothing ever since Ronaldo joined their team, or ever since before Ronaldo joined the team. They had a few group stage finishes, but overall, they mainly never made the World Cup. And then Ronaldo's first ever tournament that he participated with Portugal in the Euro 2004, they made it to the final. He also won the Euro Cup in 2016. So this idea that he never got the job done, it's just not true. He never played for a country that, they're a weird country because they always have the expectation of winning a World Cup, but realistically, they've never even come close other than 1966, like I mentioned. And especially in Ronaldo's prime, whether that was the 2014 World Cup, the 2016 Euro Cup, like I mentioned, they won that tournament, or the 2018 World Cup, when he was the best he could have been, they had nothing. They had no
Mhm.
support for him. In 2018, I remember that first group stage game they had. It was actually against Spain. I love when when two countries bordering each other are going up against each other. It was a 3-3 tie because it was Ronaldo against Spain. Ronaldo scoring a hat trick, owning prime David De Gea. Like a free kick, like 30 yards out to tie the game in the last minute, but Portugal's roster wasn't good enough. And then in 2022 and 2026, I feel like Portugal's roster eventually was good enough, but now Ronaldo's out of his prime, so it didn't matter. So I think at the end of the day, we need to realize I believe he won a Nations League with Portugal. He won a Euro Cup with Portugal. But at the end of the day, World Cup wise, like he's from Portugal. This isn't a country that has done anything at the FIFA World Cup, and that's something people need to consider. Whereas with Messi, he's from Argentina, who won 2 World Cups before he joined the national team. Obviously, he eventually got the job done and went to 2 finals, and a lot of that was because of his play. But it's just something people need to consider when they're like, "Oh, Ronaldo didn't win the World Cup." It's like Portugal's just not at the level of those other countries, and I think we saw it again yesterday when Spain beat them. They're a very good team, but Spain was just that tad bit better, and that was the result that most people were expecting.
Well, it's just funny because you mentioned he didn't really have the best of supporting cast around him until 2022 was a good roster around him, I think we can say.
Yeah,
And then, like you said, I agreed with you that this year was the single best Portuguese team that has been around Ronaldo his entire career.
yeah,
It's towards the latter half of his career, though. You know why? Because he inspired a whole bunch of these Portuguese kids to try to play football. Like,
yeah,
he is the conduit to Portuguese football becoming what it is at this point, where they're not prohibitive favorites, but they are a lock to get out of the group stage pretty much every year because of the nation that he helped inspire, in my opinion. So he should absolutely get a tremendous amount of credit for that. It's the same thing as Holland doing it for Norway right now,
exactly.
like we talked about earlier. It's an incredibly impressive achievement for him to like you said, win a Euro Cup. Like, for I'm not that much of a casual soccer fan. Like, winning a Euro Cup for Portugal is a ridiculous achievement. Like,
Yeah,
that is a incredibly prestigious tournament. Got it done. Like you said, has struggled at times in the World Cup, especially in the knockout stages. But you know why he struggled in the knockout stages? Because he's been completely overmatched, and the teams that he's playing against, like Spain, you mentioned, have no other focus but how the hell do we stop Ronaldo? That is
Mhm.
that's
Exactly.
their prime and everything towards their game plan. How do we stop number 7? So I totally agree with you in terms of his international legacy. It should be looked at as far from a failure.
Mhm.
And people need to understand the spot, like you said, that Portuguese soccer was in before he got there, because it will never be the same, all for the best, because of the impact that he's had and his celebrity around that country.
Yeah. And like you mentioned Holland too. Now I think in Holland's case, he's a bit lucky because he's in his prime, and I feel like Norway just at the same time has built a legit roster around him. Now, can they win the World Cup? I don't know, but like legitimately think they have a chance. And I feel like Ronaldo, he never got that. But another thing I'd mention about Holland is like if Holland never won the World Cup, you know, and maybe it's because Ronaldo was always competing against Messi for greatest player of all time and Messi got the job done. But I feel like even when you're from Norway, people will kind of give you that pass. Whereas when you're
Mhm.
from Portugal, it's so weird because like they're not even Croatia, they're not even the Netherlands, they're not even these other countries, Belgium, Sweden, who have
Switzerland.
done more at a World Cup without winning the title. They're just that people have this idea that they should be much better than they are. And, you know, maybe that was because Ronaldo was on the team, but it's kind of, you know, for him unlucky in a way because, like I said, it's not good enough to win a World Cup for his country, but it's also a country that people like every single tournament, Portugal's going to be expected to win a World Cup by Portuguese people. Like that's the
Mhm.
reality of it. But you know, it's a weird thing to think about when, you know, a country that hasn't done anything thinks that way, but you know, that's just the way it is. And I think, but you know, one more thing I want to mention about Ronaldo is I think it's, you know, weird that he's retiring from international football now, considering that the next World Cup will be in Portugal. I have a feeling like he might want to push to maybe be a bench player at that tournament. But we'll see. He hasn't officially announced retirement from international football like Modric or Neymar did, but we'll see. It'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, for sure, and that'll bring up a whole other crop of storylines of is that even good for Portugal, and we can't wait for that until 2030. We have run out
Yeah.
of time on today's show, though. We can't quite get into that conversation. Thank you all so much for watching, as always. I wanna know, what were your first thoughts when you heard the 650 news? What do you think about the Canucks potentially getting rid of Pettersson to Pittsburgh? World Cup thoughts, anything that's happening in the world of sports, we love hearing it. We are small office where you can read all comments. Love doing so. So drop something down there. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Like I said, the Spit Sports Show just over 450 subscribers. Big things happening on this channel. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out. I love you guys.